Okay, so we've all had travel moments, right? Or where like what should be simple turns into,
Yeah.
a frustrating ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine this.
Okay.
Like you're 17 years old,
Okay.
you're just trying to blend in, and suddenly you're at the center of like a public spectacle.
Oh, wow.
And that's exactly what happened to Barron Trump
Okay.
at Dallas Love Field Airport.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating, like how this seemingly routine boarding process
Right.
just spiraled into something much bigger,
Yeah.
raising all sorts of questions about procedures,
Interesting.
perceptions,
Yeah.
and the power of documentation.
It's a case study in how quickly things can escalate, especially when you have a convergence of factors like a public figure,
Right,
a tense environment,
right.
and those inevitable snap judgments we all make. The sources kind of paint a picture of Barron dressed casually trying to board his flight,
Right.
just like any other teenager.
Yeah.
But then you have that pivotal moment,
Mm.
the interaction with the gate agent.
Yeah, the sources really highlight the gate agent's tone,
Oh, really?
describing it as suspicious, almost like he was looking for a problem.
Wow.
Like, they say he kept asking to see Barron's ticket,
Mm.
even after he'd shown it multiple times.
Okay.
And it's interesting, they specifically mention how the agent, read Barron's name aloud.
Oh, wow.
Barron Trump.
Interesting.
Almost as if he was, waiting for a reaction.
What's intriguing here is the potential for unconscious bias
Right.
to creep into these seemingly routine interactions.
Yeah.
We all have preconceived notions,
Hmm.
and it's possible that the gate agent, upon hearing the name Trump,
Yeah.
allowed those biases to influence his behavior.
Right.
It's a reminder that even in seemingly neutral settings like airports,
Right.
our perceptions and judgments can shape the way we interact with others.
So we have a teenager who's already kind of in a slightly vulnerable position,
Yeah.
trying to navigate this adult world. And then he encounters this gate agent who seems to be scrutinizing him more than other passengers.
Yeah.
I could only imagine the frustration
Yeah.
and sense of being singled out.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that this isn't just any teenager.
Right.
This is Barron Trump, someone
Yeah.
who's grown up under constant public scrutiny.
Right.
The sources hint at his growing discomfort,
Yeah.
his repeated questions of what procedures, what issue,
Yeah.
as if he's trying to understand why he's being treated differently.
And it doesn't end there. Right.
Whoa.
It actually escalates further when a supervisor gets involved.
Oh, wow.
Instead of de-escalating the situation, they double down,
Mm.
claiming they can't verify Barron's identity, despite him having his passport.
Oh, wow.
They keep citing procedures and irregularities, but they're
Yeah.
vague on specifics.
Interesting.
It's like they're using bureaucracy as a shield,
Right.
but what's hiding behind that shield is what's really intriguing.
You've hit on a crucial point.
Yeah.
It's easy to get lost in the procedural jargon,
Mm.
but we have to ask, are these procedures being applied fairly and consistently,
Right.
or are they being used selectively?
Yeah.
Makes you think about the power dynamics at play, how someone in a position of authority can use procedures to control a situation,
Right.
even when those procedures might not be entirely justified.
Exactly. And for Barron, who's already feeling singled out and questioned,
Yeah.
this just adds to the frustration.
Right.
The sources describe him as being calm,
Okay.
but clearly annoyed,
Yeah.
asking those pointed questions, seeking clarification,
Right.
but not getting clear answers.
Wow.
It's like he's stuck in this bureaucratic maze and no one's giving him a clear path out.
This raises a fascinating question for our listeners.
Okay.
Think about a time when you felt caught in a similar situation, maybe dealing with a bureaucratic process that felt unfair or opaque.
Yeah.
How did it make you feel? Did you question the motives behind the procedures?
Yeah.
Did you try to push back?
Yeah.
It's a common human experience to feel powerless in such moments.
Mm-hmm.
And in Barron's case, it's happening on a very public stage.
And then, just as things seem to be spiraling, another key player enters the scene,
Okay.
Melania Trump.
Okay.
She receives urgent messages about the situation and rushes to the airport, arriving with a sense of purpose and determination.
This is where the dynamics shift dramatically.
Yeah,
Up until this point, it's been Barron, a teenager,
right.
versus airport staff and security.
Yeah,
Now his mother, a figure of authority and influence in her own right, arrives and takes control of the situation.
right.
It's almost like a chess game where a new piece has been introduced,
Yeah.
completely changing the strategic landscape.
And her arrival is described as being very impactful.
Oh, wow.
She's calm, but assertive,
Okay.
demanding answers,
Yeah.
challenging the staff's actions,
Right.
and refusing to accept vague explanations.
Huh.
She wants specifics.
Okay.
What procedures were violated, what irregularities were observed, and why was her son treated differently?
What's striking is her focus on accountability. She's not just there to soothe her son's frustration.
Yeah.
She's there to expose what she perceives as unfair treatment and demand a justification for it. It's a reminder that as individuals, we have the right to question authority, to seek transparency, and to hold those in power accountable for their actions.
And the staff who seemed so sure of themselves before suddenly seem a lot less confident.
Wow.
They stammer, offer weak excuses, and point to those same vague procedures.
Okay.
But Melania doesn't let up. It's like she can sense that something isn't right, that there's more to this story than they're letting on.
This is where the power of intuition comes into play.
Right.
Sometimes, even when we don't have all the facts, we can sense when something is off, when there's a disconnect between what we're being told and what we intuitively believe to be true. And in Melania's case, that intuition leads her to demand something that will change the course of this entire ordeal.
Okay.
The security footage.
Right. She insists on reviewing the footage.
Okay.
And you can almost feel the reluctance from the staff.
Yeah.
They try to dissuade her, claiming it's unnecessary. But she stands firm.
Wow.
What do you think is going through their minds at this point?
I imagine a mixture of apprehension and perhaps a realization that their initial narrative might not hold up under scrutiny.
Right.
Remember, this is a time when cameras are everywhere. And the footage could either corroborate or contradict their version of events.
Right.
And as we'll see in the next part of our deep dive, the footage reveals some very telling details that shift the power dynamics once again.
That's a great cliffhanger.
Yeah.
We'll be back in a moment to continue our deep dive into this incident, exploring the power of documentation.
Okay.
The impact of a public apology.
Right.
And the larger message that emerges from this whole ordeal.
Stay tuned. Welcome back. So we left off with Melania Trump demanding access to the security footage.
Right.
And, you know, it's like that moment in a detective movie when the hero asks for the tapes and, you know, things are about to get interesting.
It's a pivotal point in the narrative because it highlights the increasing role of documentation in holding people accountable.
Right.
In the past, these kinds of situations might have been resolved with conflicting accounts. And no clear way to determine the truth.
Right.
But now with cameras practically everywhere, we have a more objective record of events.
And this case really demonstrates the power of that objective record, right?
Yeah.
The sources describe the footage as being somewhat grainy, but clear enough to contradict the staff's claims.
Wow.
It shows Barron patiently answering questions, showing his documents, and generally not doing anything disruptive.
Right.
It basically undermines their whole narrative about him being uncooperative or posing a security risk. It's a reminder that we live in a world where actions are increasingly being recorded, and those recordings can have a profound impact on how events are perceived.
Right.
And Judge, this isn't just about airport security. It's about a broader shift in society where documentation plays a crucial role in accountability, transparency, and even justice.
So the footage exposes the discrepancies in the staff's account.
Right.
And you can imagine the tension in the air as this realization sinks in.
Oh, yeah.
Melania, armed with this visual evidence, doesn't let up. She demands a public apology, not just a private acknowledgement of their mistake.
Okay.
She wants the supervisor to own up to his actions in front of everyone who witnessed the incident.
This is a fascinating aspect of the story because it speaks to a desire for something more than just a simple correction of a mistake. It's about restoring dignity not just for Barron, but for anyone who's ever been unjustly treated based on assumptions or biases. A public apology in this context becomes a form of social accountability, a way of acknowledging wrongdoing and signaling a commitment to doing better.
And the supervisor, realizing he's backed into a corner, agrees to the public apology.
Okay.
They all head back to the gate.
Right.
And the sources describe this palpable tension as they approach the crowd.
Oh, wow.
It's like everyone knows something significant is about to happen.
Think about the psychology of that moment. You have a crowd of people who witnessed the initial confrontation, saw Barron being singled out and questioned, and now they're watching this unfolding drama. There's a sense of anticipation, perhaps even a collective desire to see justice served.
The supervisor steps forward, and starts with a somewhat generic apology.
Okay.
Talking about misunderstandings and procedures.
Right.
But Melania's steady gaze seems to push him further.
Interesting.
She's not satisfied with vague excuses.
Yeah.
She wants him to take full responsibility for his actions.
This is where effective communication, particularly in situations of conflict resolution, becomes so important.
Yeah.
It's not just about saying the words, "I'm sorry."
Right.
It's about conveying genuine remorse. Acknowledging the impact of one's actions, and expressing a willingness to learn from the experience.
And to his credit, the supervisor eventually does go further.
Oh, good.
He explicitly states that Barron did nothing wrong.
Okay.
And that the entire incident was a result of their mistake.
Right.
It's a clear admission of guilt and a validation of Barron's experience.
That admission is crucial because it shifts the narrative. From one of ambiguity and justification to one of accountability and responsibility.
Right.
It acknowledges that power was misused, that procedures were misapplied, and that Barron was unfairly targeted.
But Melania, in a move that I find really powerful, doesn't stop there.
Wow.
She steps forward and addresses the crowd herself, acknowledging the apology, but making it clear that this situation is about more than just her son.
Okay.
She talks about the importance of treating everyone with respect.
Right.
Regardless of their background or name.
This is where her message transcends the immediate situation and becomes a powerful statement about universal human dignity. She's using her platform, her voice, to advocate for a broader principle that everyone deserves to be treated fairly and respectfully, regardless of their social standing or perceived affiliations.
And the crowd reacts.
Oh, wow.
There's applause nods of agreement.
Yeah.
And you get the sense that her words have resonated with people on a deeper level.
Right.
It's like she's tapped into a shared human experience. That feeling of being judged or mistreated based on assumptions rather than facts.
It's a reminder that even in a crowded, impersonal setting like an airport, there's a yearning for fairness, for respect, for a sense of common humanity.
Right.
Melania's words, delivered with conviction and sincerity, seem to have struck a chord. Yeah.
Creating a moment of connection and shared understanding.
And it doesn't end there.
Oh, wow.
The sources describe a woman with a toddler approaching Barron and Melania, apologizing for what they went through, and expressing solidarity.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
It's a small gesture, but it speaks volumes about the impact of Melania's words.
It's a beautiful example of how a personal experience shared authentically can create a ripple effect of empathy and compassion. It demonstrates the power of speaking truth to power, of challenging injustice, and of inspiring others to do the same.
So we've seen how a public apology delivered with sincerity and a willingness to acknowledge wrongdoing can be a powerful tool for restoring dignity and accountability.
Right.
But the story doesn't end there. Melania, ever the strategic communicator, takes to social media to amplify her message to a much wider audience.
And this brings us to another fascinating aspect of the story.
Yeah.
The role of social media in shaping narratives and driving social change.
In the past, an incident like this might have been confined to the immediate environment, fading from memory relatively quickly. But now, with the power of social media, it becomes part of a larger conversation, reaching millions of people and potentially influencing perceptions and behaviors far beyond the original incident.
So the public apology has been made. A broader message about respect and dignity has been delivered. And now Melania is using social media to amplify that message to a global audience. It's like she's taking this negative experience and turning it into an opportunity to spark a broader conversation about how we treat each other, how we hold each other accountable, and how we create a more just and compassionate world.
And that perhaps is the most enduring legacy of this incident. It's not just about what happened at Dallas Love Field Airport, but about the larger questions it raises. How do we navigate a world where snap judgments and unconscious biases can shape our interactions? How do we use our voices to challenge injustice and advocate for fairness? And how do we leverage the power of social media to amplify messages of respect, understanding, and human dignity? These are questions worth pondering, and we'll continue to explore them as we move into the final part of our deep dive. Flow with us.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
So we've been dissecting this incident at Dallas Love Field Airport.
Right.
Where, a seemingly routine boarding process turned into this, public lesson on accountability perception and the power of a well-timed tweet.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears for a moment.
Okay.
And think about Barron. I mean, he's been at the center of this storm.
Right.
And I'm kind of curious about how he processes this whole experience.
The sources provide an interesting contrast between Barron and Melania's reactions.
Oh, really?
In the immediate aftermath.
Oh, yeah.
While Melania is actively engaging on social media, crafting her message and amplifying the conversation.
Barron is described as being more introspective.
Okay.
Quietly processing what just transpired.
It makes sense, right? He's 17, thrust into this public situation.
Right.
And while it seems he handled himself well under pressure, it must have been a lot to take in.
Right.
It makes me wonder about the long-term effects of growing up in the public eye. Constantly scrutinized.
Yeah.
Every action analyzed.
It raises an important question about the psychological impact of public scrutiny.
Right.
Especially on young people.
Yeah.
Imagine constantly being aware of cameras, knowing that anything you do or say could be amplified and dissected.
Yeah.
It's a pressure that most of us can't even fathom.
Right.
And it's interesting that the sources highlight Barron's quiet demeanor, suggesting a level of maturity and composure that's perhaps been cultivated by years of living under the microscope.
It's a reminder that there's a human side to these public figures, a vulnerability that's often overlooked in the rush to judge or analyze. Right. And it makes Melania's actions even more striking, right?
Yeah.
She's not just a mother protecting her child.
Right.
She's also a public figure navigating a complex situation with grace and strategic intent.
Absolutely. And I think her actions resonate with so many people because they tap into those universal parental instincts. Desire to protect your child, to shield them from harm, to ensure they're treated fairly.
Right.
But in Melania's case, that instinct is amplified by the fact that her child is constantly in the public eye.
Right.
Subject to a level of scrutiny that most parents can't imagine.
It's like she's playing a multidimensional chess game.
Yeah.
Navigating the personal, the political, and the public all at once.
Right.
And what's impressive is how she manages to turn this potentially negative experience into an opportunity for positive change.
Right.
Sparking a conversation about respect, dignity, and accountability.
This incident could have easily spiraled into a cycle of accusations, denials, and further division.
Right.
But instead, Melania's actions,
her insistence on a public apology, and her carefully crafted message on social media seem to have steered the conversation in a more constructive direction.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with a sense of admiration for how Melania handled the situation, but I'm also struck by this lingering question.
Okay.
What can we as individuals learn from this?
Yeah.
How can we apply these lessons to our own lives, even if we're not navigating the world of public figures and intense scrutiny?
I think the key takeaway for all of us is the importance of speaking up against injustice.
Right.
Even in seemingly small moments.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing those instances where someone is being treated unfairly, where assumptions are being made, where procedures are being misused, and having the courage to say something.
It's about those everyday interactions where we have the opportunity to choose kindness, empathy, and respect, even when it's challenging.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing our own biases, examining our assumptions.
And making a conscious effort to treat everyone with dignity.
Right.
Regardless of their background or social standing.
And perhaps most importantly, it's about remembering that our actions, even those that seem insignificant in the grand scheme of things, can have a ripple effect.
Yeah.
By speaking up, by challenging injustice, by choosing kindness and respect.
Right.
We contribute to a more just and compassionate world, one interaction at a time.
This deep dive has taken us from a crowded airport terminal to a broader conversation about accountability, perception, and the power of individual actions. It's been a fascinating exploration of human behavior, the complexities of public life, and the potential we all have to make a difference. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.